Kyle was seated in his modest office, his eyes fixated on the wall in front of him. Today marked the 7th sorrowful anniversary of his fiancée's inexplicable departure. This was not just a simple case of her walking out on him, but an incident that had left him swimming in an ocean of uncertainty and unanswered questions. All he had to piece together the puzzle was a letter, a cryptic memento left behind by his lost love. The neatly folded piece of paper had been read and reread so many times that he had lost count. However, the mystery veiled with its words continued to elude him. The content of the letter was simple and heartbreaking. "I'm sorry, I can no longer be a part of your life." The words, though plain and straightforward, made Kyle question the hidden connotations. He was absolutely certain that his beloved Megan had strong feelings for him, just as he did for her. So what could have possibly instigated her sudden vanishing act? Reflecting on their relationship, it had only been a few months since Megan moved into his place, marking the beginning of their shared life. Before this significant step, they had been in a committed relationship for several months. Everything seemed perfect until the fateful day when she disappeared, leaving Kyle with nothing but questions. Kyle and Megan's first encounter took place at a park, a location that Kyle had no plans of visiting that day. The sequence of events leading to this unexpected meet-cute was as strange as it was fortunate. Kyle was supposed to attend a significant business meeting that day. He had called his usual taxi driver, a man he frequently relied upon for such important occasions. However, luck wasn't on his side. The driver got ensnared in the city's horrendous traffic, which Kyle loathed driving in himself, especially during the peak hours. His only alternative was to drive his dusty old Pontiac Firebird, a relic that had been sitting undisturbed in his garage for far too long. The car hadn't seen the light of day in a while, let alone a mechanic for regular maintenance. Despite its shortcomings, Kyle held a special fondness for this car. It wasn't just because of its vintage appeal, but more so because it was a cherished possession of his late father. Numerous memories were etched in Kyle's heart, featuring his father behind the wheel, driving him around to various destinations. Even though Kyle could easily afford a reliable Toyota or a luxurious Mercedes, his sentimentality kept him attached to his aged yet beloved Pontiac. However, on this critical day, when all Kyle needed was a smooth drive to the office, the car unpredictably gave out, screeching to a standstill amidst a throng of vehicles. Feeling anxious yet helpless, Kyle decided to reschedule his business meeting. He phoned his partner, suggesting to reconvene on a different day. While trying and falling to coax the old Pontiac back to life, he realized there was no rush anymore. With the afternoon sun still high, he called for roadside assistance and stepped out onto the bustling street. His car had broken down near a park, where a vibrant celebration seemed to be underway. Children and adults alike were smeared in colorful paint, their laughter echoing under the open sky. The infectious energy, accompanied by the resounding music, coaxed a smile onto Kyle's face, despite his predicament. "Are you alone? Please save me." The piercing, urgent plea rang out, causing Kyle to jump in surprise. Before he could gather his thoughts or offer a response, a young woman had already seized his arm and was dragging him away. Kyle found himself propelled into a line with other couples, hands held high, before he could even utter a word of protest. Beaming widely, the woman hastily explained, "I'm sorry to have pulled you in like this, but as an event organizer, I can't be caught without a partner." Any protest Kyle may have wished to voice would have been drowned out by the clamor around him. Within a few minutes, he found himself thoroughly engrossed, laughter bubbling out of him as he participated in a whimsical children's game called River. For the moment, he was able to forget about everything. The fact that he was a 36-year-old man embroiled in a divorce, and the reality that this simple, joy-filled diversion wouldn't add any financial gain or tangible benefit to his life. Yet it offered him something invaluable, an unexpected moment of pure, unadulterated joy. Kyle was the type of individual who placed immense value on his time. He endeavored to ensure that each minute was spent in the pursuit of productivity, always striving to accomplish as much as possible. However, on this unusual day, he found himself astounded by how swiftly a couple of hours had breezed past. all spent in pure, undiluted enjoyment. In this moment of reflection, Kyle realized that it had been an eternity since he had last indulged in such simple, unstructured fun. It dawned on him that life held more treasures beyond the relentless race to amass wealth. There was also joy, laughter, and a spontaneity that could lead to unexpected yet delightful encounters. Alright everyone, thank you so much for joining in today's festivities. We had an absolute blast. I hope we cross paths again very soon. Stay optimistic and keep having fun. The young woman who had unexpectedly swept Kyle into this whirlwind of fun was energetically addressing the crowd through a microphone. As people began to disperse, heading towards the park's exit, she set the microphone down and sank onto a nearby speaker. Her exhalation was deep and heavy, a clear sign of her exhaustion. Observing her, Kyle decided to approach. "I haven't had this much fun in a long time," he admitted. "Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it," she replied, her voice slightly worn out. Kyle glanced at the equipment scattered around them and asked, "Do you need any help packing up?" At this, she looked up, a weak but genuine smile gracing her lips. "Sure, I won't turn down help. I'm totally worn out. It's sweltering out here. By the way, I'm sorry for pulling you into the fray, but you really saved me." "Actually, I should be thanking you. I truly enjoyed myself," Kyle responded with a sincere smile, already starting to pack the equipment away. "By the way, my name's Kyle, and I'm Megan." As Kyle hoisted a heavy speaker, he found himself surprised by its weight. It was impressive to think that she handled all this equipment single-handedly. "Do you always carry all this by yourself?" "Well, yeah, most of the time. Sometimes the people who hire me pitch in, but that's a rarity. They feel that once they've paid, they don't owe me any assistance." "You're so young to be working this hard. You might burn yourself out." Megan chuckled. Kyle helped her load all the equipment into a small, whimsical green car adorned with playful illustrations. He couldn't help but smile at the sight. "So, where's your next event?" "Tomorrow is my grandma's day, and the day after that, I'll be working at the waterfront," Megan answered, mirroring his smile. Kyle's eyebrow quirked up curiously. "What's Grandma's Day?" "It's the day I dedicate to my grandmother. I take her to the park, to the stores, and the waterfront. Basically, I spend the day entertaining her," she explained with a fun glint in her eyes. With a final enthusiastic wave, Megan drove away, her small, whimsically decorated car gradually disappearing from sight, leaving behind a faint bluish puff of exhaust. Kyle lingered at the spot for a while, seeming to gradually return to his usual serious self. It was as though he was allowing the magical spell of the afternoon to wear off. It took him several minutes to gather his thoughts and find the strength to amble back to his stalled car, still waiting for roadside assistance. Once back home, Kyle was met with another tempestuous outburst from his wife, Kelly. She had returned earlier than usual that day, only to find his car missing from the garage. In her experience, this typically signaled that Kyle was either fed up with work, seeking an escape from their tumultuous relationship, or both. Kelly loathed these days, for they frequently ended with Kyle stumbling back home under the influence of alcohol. His friends would drop him off, leaving her the unpleasant task of retrieving his car and driving it back home. The bitter familiarity of this routine added another layer of strain to their already strained relationship. "Kyle, where were you?" Kelly's shrill demand assaulted his ears, setting him on edge. "Why should you care?" he retorted, his irritation seeping into his tone. "I'm just asking. After all, I'm your wife. Don't I have a right to know where you've been?" She snapped back. "Oh, so now you're interested in my whereabouts?" He shot back, a bitter edge to his words. "You never informed me of your whereabouts when you were out partying till dawn." "Here we go again," Kelly sighed, feeling anxiety creeping in. "Why must you keep bringing that up?" "How can I not?" Kyle retorted, his voice cracking with anger. "You lied to me. You claimed you weren't at the club, mingling with God knows who." Suddenly, Kelly's demeanor shifted. She softened her tone, attempting a conciliatory approach. "Kyle, darling, why are we fighting? We've been together for 8 years. You know I apologized and promised it would never happen again. Why are you escalating this argument?" "You've broken that promise more than once," Kyle countered, unimpressed by her change of tactics. "Kyle, my love," Kelly cooed, rising to her feet and sauntering over to him, exaggerating the sway of her hips. A smirk tugged at the corners of Kyle's lips. Just a year ago, he would have let it go, blinded by her physical beauty, but he had come to realize that her beauty was skin-deep and concealed a much less attractive personality. He had been oblivious to the fact that she was akin to a leech, primarily interested in him for the wealth he possessed. Her superficial charm had obscured her true intentions, but now he could see her for what she really was. Their love story had begun in the office. Kelly, a young and strikingly beautiful office manager, always seemed to know exactly what her boss required. Whether it was a cup of coffee at just the right moment or ensuring he wasn't disturbed during crucial meetings, she was always on point. Her attention to detail was meticulous. If Kyle missed anything important, she would promptly step in and manage the situation. This uncanny ability to stay on top of things didn't go unnoticed by Kyle. He was quick to appreciate her talent and finesse. What caught Kyle's attention even more was Kelly's lack of obvious attempts to seduce him. There were many young women in the office who would have jumped at the chance to date someone like Kyle, who was not only powerful and influential, but also extremely attractive. However, Kelly was different from the rest. She carried herself with an air of modesty and humility, making her stand out in a sea of overt ambition. However, either everything changed or what he'd believed to be her character had been nothing more than a facade from the start. The tipping point came last year when he received an anonymous package containing photographs of Kelly with other men at a private nightclub. The shock and betrayal he felt upon seeing those pictures was overwhelming. In retrospect, he realized he had ignored numerous warning signs and red flags about her true nature. "You realize we've spent 8 long years together, and now you're contemplating divorce?" Kelly's voice was heavy with accusation. "I haven't had a child because you were unable to father one. How can you not comprehend that? I was partying because I too was tired of it all and needed an outlet. What are you suggesting now? That I die alone?" Kyle's frown deepened. Amidst all their existing troubles, they had recently discovered that they were unable to have children, an issue that apparently lay with him. For the past 3 years, Kyle had harbored a deep desire to start a family. However, Kelly continually argued that they should focus on enjoying their youth and freedom before settling down into parenthood. This was just one of her many reasons she used to evade his talks about having children. When she finally relented, Kyle felt a surge of happiness. However, despite their best efforts, they were unable to conceive. Concerned, Kyle proposed they seek medical advice. Kelly quickly arranged for a consultation at a high-end clinic where she had several contacts. Thanks to her connections, they received immediate attention, albeit at a hefty cost. The doctor delivered the devastating news with finality. Kyle was incapable of fathering children. At that moment, Kelly put on a dramatic display of sympathy and despair, which deepened his sense of guilt and inadequacy. So overwhelmed with guilt was Kyle that he initially overlooked Kelly's repeated acts of infidelity. However, patience has its limits, and Kyle's tolerance reached its end when he began receiving photographs of his wife from various nightclubs. There she was, scantily clad and clearly inebriated, flirting openly with other men. In that instant, it dawned on Kyle that there was no future for them together. The same truth applied to Kelly as well. They were stifling each other's lives. While she yearned for a life filled with socializing and excitement, he craved a simple, peaceful, and warm family setting. Even though he was unable to father a child, they could have still chosen to adopt. But their diverging desires had led them down a path of discord, leading Kyle to realize the bitter end of their relationship was near. "Kelly," Kyle began, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. "After my test results came back, you claimed all you wanted was a family. Since I'm the one who can't conceive and you're perfectly capable, perhaps it's time for you to find someone else. Someone who can give you the family you say you want. Let's not make this any more painful than it already is." He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "When I suggested exploring advanced medical options, you dismissed the idea of having a test tube baby. So now you will have the chance to conceive naturally, the way you want it." His words hung heavily in the air, marking the inevitable end of their once hopeful relationship. Kyle made a move to leave, but Kelly swiftly blocked his path. "I won't agree to a divorce," she declared defiantly, "unless you promise to give me at least half of your assets." Her words resonated with a cold determination, reinforcing the final bitter breakdown of their once intimate relationship. Kyle burst into laughter. "Are you delusional?" he retorted, incredulous. "Half of my fortune? Why? How did you contribute to amassing my wealth?" Her expression, contorted with rage, only served to elicit more laughter from him. "Go ahead, do as you please, but understand this," he said, his amusement subsiding into firm resolve. "My journey with you ends here today." His declaration marked the irrevocable end of their tumultuous relationship. The following morning, for reasons he wouldn't fully acknowledge, Kyle found himself rushing to the park. Deep down, he was propelled by the faint hope of catching a glimpse of Megan. He had a hunch that she might frequent the park in the early hours of the day. Part of him yearned to see her vivacious energy and radiant smile again, offering a much-needed distraction from the bitter disputes with Kelly. Upon spotting Megan, Kyle felt his legs betray him, guiding him towards her as though they possessed a will of their own. His lips, almost like they were no longer under his control, formed into an unexpected but genuine smile. The sight of her seemed to ignite a spark within him, a surge of elation that he hadn't felt in a long time. Unaware of his approach, Megan was caught off guard. "Excuse me, your park games made me ill last night," Kyle spoke up from behind her. Startled by his words, Megan swiftly turned around, her eyes widening in surprise. She failed to recognize him initially due to the sunglasses he was wearing. I'm sorry, what do you mean?" she queried, her forehead creasing in confusion. Kyle gently removed his sunglasses, allowing his eyes to meet hers. "They made my heart ache for you," a light glinting in his eyes that hadn't been there for a long time. Thus began their blossoming romance. As he started spending more time with Megan, Kyle felt as if he had been living under a cloud for years. He hadn't imagined that he could still experience the flutter of excitement, the thrilling sensation of butterflies in his stomach. With Megan, he rediscovered the joy and exhilaration of new love, a feeling he thought was lost to him. His days became brighter, filled with anticipation and a sense of completeness that he hadn't felt in a long time. What endeared Kyle even more to Megan was her sense of fairness. Along with her wise grandmother, they convinced him to treat Kelly justly during their separation. Despite Kelly's hurtful actions, Megan believed in the importance of maintaining one's integrity. She persuaded Kyle that Kelly deserved to be treated fairly and to receive what she was entitled to. Her compassion and sense of justice added another layer to his growing affection and respect for her. "Sweetheart, you need to remember that she was there for you when you needed support," Megan gently reminded him one day. "People change, circumstances shift, and everyone makes mistakes. Besides, when you married her, you loved her, didn't you?" Kyle didn't have it in him to argue. He was too caught up in his newfound happiness. His mind was focused on a single goal, finalizing the divorce so he could ask Megan the most important question of his life. His heart yearned for the moment he could propose to her and hopefully embark on a joyous journey together. Life had been proceeding smoothly, only to be interrupted by a cruel twist of fate. 3 months into their burgeoning relationship, Megan's beloved grandmother passed away. This was a severe blow for her. She was deeply affected by the loss. Seeing her suffering, Kyle invited her to move in with him. He took great care of her, providing comfort and support during her grieving period. However, a month later, Megan vanished unexpectedly, leaving behind only a cryptic note. "We can't be together. I'm not what you need. I'm sorry." Kyle was left bewildered and hurt, grappling with the abrupt departure of the woman he had grown to love deeply. The note gave no clear reason, and he was left with nothing but unanswered questions and the echoing void of her absence. He questioned whether he had done something wrong or if there was someone else in Megan's life. The mere fact that she no longer wanted to be with him was something he could come to terms with, but the absence of clarity and understanding regarding the reasons behind her decision left him plagued with anxiety. The weight of uncertainty pressed upon him, compelling him to wander the city streets in search of solace and understanding. The preceding evening had been filled with a semblance of contentment and intimacy. Kyle had taken a significant step, opening up to Megan in a way he had never done before. With vulnerability in his voice, he revealed his deep-seated fear. He couldn't father children. Despite this revelation, he expressed his willingness to explore alternative paths, such as adoption or other medical options if she desired. In that moment, he had bared his soul, offering her the opportunity to decide their future together. Kyle had hoped that their shared honesty would strengthen their bond, fostering an even deeper connection between them. Amidst his disclosure about his inability to have children, Kyle had also made a solemn declaration that he would never forgive being lied to again. However, this statement was unrelated to Megan and their relationship. Those words were related to his life with Kelly. Years elapsed, and Kyle found himself seated in his office, reflecting upon the passage of time. His company had flourished and grown into a significantly larger enterprise. The walls of his office bore testament to his dedication and hard work, adorned with the words and accolades that marked the milestones of his professional journey. "Mr. Green, may I come in?" His secretary Serena peeked into his office, appearing slightly flustered. "Yes, please come in. What seems to be the matter?" Kyle inquired, curious about the cause of her agitation. Serena hesitated, adjusting her bangs nervously. "There is a rather peculiar delivery person waiting outside for you," she began. "It's not something I usually handle myself, but I thought you should see it firsthand." Kyle felt a flicker of annoyance starting to rise within him. He had a plethora of tasks demanding his attention, and he was growing wary of Serena's incessant interruptions. "What now?" he mused inwardly. "She's pushing her limits. Perhaps it's time to consider letting her go." "All right, let's go see what this is all about," Kyle responded, his tone tinged with impatience. He exited his office and surveyed the scene outside. To his surprise, he found a young boy standing there, clutching a letter in his hands. "Hey there, are you the delivery person?" Kyle inquired, studying the boy carefully. "And is that letter for me?" The young boy nodded shyly. "Yes, if you're Kyle Green, then this is for you," he confirmed. Kyle couldn't help but smile at the innocence radiating from the child. "Yes, that's me. What do you have there?" Kyle asked, his curiosity piqued. The boy extended the letter towards him. "Here, it's the letter. Just make sure you read it today. It's really important," he emphasized. After a brief pause, he added, "That's what my mom said." With a sudden surge of anticipation, Kyle pivoted on his heels and hurried back, his heart pounding in his chest. Words remained unspoken as he was overcome by the sight of the envelope in his hands. Megan's unmistakable handwriting adorned the surface, instantly recognizable to him. His emotions swirled within him, a whirlwind of hope, curiosity, and a touch of apprehension. Without hesitation, Kyle gently traced his fingers over the familiar script, feeling a rush of emotions welling up within him. "If anyone asks, I'm out of the office," Kyle declared, his voice firm and determined. Serena glanced at him, a mix of fear and concern etched across her face. She knew better than to question his directive and nodded in acknowledgement. Without wasting another moment, Kyle stormed back into his office, settling into his chair with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. With hand trembling ever so slightly, he carefully tore open the envelope, unfolding the contents within. As he began to read the words penned by Megan, a chilling realization washed over him. It became painfully clear that a single misunderstood word had shattered not only his and Megan's lives, but also the life of their son, forever altering the course of their intertwined destinies. As the puzzle pieces started to align, a significant revelation emerged. Approximately a year after Megan's sudden departure, Kyle's health began to decline rapidly, leading to his hospitalization. The private clinic he was admitted to held a familiar face, the head doctor, a close friend of his. Amidst the medical setting, Kyle's friend couldn't help but chuckle, attempting to lighten the heavy atmosphere. "Come on, my friend," the doctor laughed. "It's time for you to move on and find someone else. You can't continue living like this." The doctor's words struck a chord within Kyle, resonating with the truth he had been trying to evade. The depths of his longing for Megan and the impact of her absence had taken a toll on his well-being. As Kyle conversed with his friend, he shared the details of his past experience with Kelly, particularly her role in taking him to the doctor and the diagnosis of his infertility. His friend, well versed in the intricacies of medical matters, offered a suggestion that sparked a glimmer of hope. "Kyle, our bodies undergo changes over time," his friend advised, his voice filled with reassurance. "Why don't you consider getting tested again? Sometimes medical conditions can evolve or be reassessed." The idea resonated with Kyle, rekindling a sense of possibility. Perhaps a second round of tests could shed new light on his condition, revealing a different outcome or a revised understanding. As Kyle received the results of the retest, he was confronted with a devastating truth. It was a shocking revelation that shattered the illusion Kelly had created. The new findings confirmed that everything was indeed fine with Kyle. He was not infertile as he had been led to believe. The realization struck him with a wave of anguish and anger as he realized the depths of Kelly's deception. It became clear to Kyle that Kelly had orchestrated the entire ruse, intentionally misleading him and manipulating his emotions. She had never desired him to pursue a family, as it contradicted her own hidden agenda. Kyle remained seated in his office, his hands trembling as he retrieved the letter once more. With bated breath, he carefully reread the paragraph, absorbing the weight of Megan's heartfelt confession. "That evening, I had a surprise for you. I wanted to tell you that we were expecting a child, but when you said that you can never have children and that you would crush anyone who tried to lie to you, I got scared." The words echoed in Kyle's mind, resonating with regret and sorrow. "Maybe we should have had a conversation about this, but I couldn't bring myself to beg you to trust me. You would have never found out about our son, but I feel compelled to inform you that I'm ill. Frankly, I'm uncertain whether I'll get better or not. Please, while I'll still have the capability, consider doing a DNA test. If anything happens, please don't leave him alone." He placed the letter into his pocket. "Serena!" The secretary instantly appeared at the doorway. "Serena, how old is your son?" he asked. Serena looked bewildered and replied, "He's 8? All right, you're coming with me," he said decisively. Serena was familiar with her boss and didn't question his request. She complied and followed him. They made a stop at a shopping center and entered the children's store. "Serena, what do you think the age of the boy who brought the letter is?" he inquired. "I believe he's around 6 or 7, Serena responded. "Okay, put everything in the shopping cart that might interest him," he instructed. "Just toys, or should I include clothes too?" Serena asked for clarification. "Everything," he affirmed. They proceeded to fill the shopping cart with various items, and once they were done, Kyle closed the trunk of the car, storing the purchased items inside. "You're free for the rest of the day," Kyle informed Serena, granting her a rare reprieve from her usual responsibilities. As she prepared to leave, curiosity compelled her to ask the question that had been lingering in her mind. "Who is that boy?" she inquired, her voice filled with genuine intrigue. Kyle's expression transformed, a radiant smile illuminating his face. The weight of his revelation lifted, replaced by a newfound sense of joy and hope. "He's my son," Kyle replied, his voice infused with a mix of wonder and delight. Kyle drove his car to the small, weathered house situated on the outskirts. With a sense of purpose, he parked the vehicle and stepped out, opening the trunk to reveal bags brimming with toys, clothes, and sweets. Laden with these offerings, he made his way towards the front door, determined to bring joy to the lives that awaited him within. Balancing the bags in his hands, Kyle attempted to reach the doorbell, but the weight caused him to accidentally collide with the door, producing a loud thud. The unexpected impact caused the door to swing open, revealing a scene that filled his heart with warmth and anticipation. Kyle's eyes locked with Megan's gaze, but he was taken aback by what he saw. The person standing before him was a mere shadow of the vibrant woman he had known. Megan's once lustrous eyes were the only recognizable feature amidst the frailty that encompassed her being. The sight of her emaciated figure and pallid complexion pierced Kyle's heart. Despite the visible toll her illness had taken, Megan managed to summon a gentle smile. Sensing Kyle's overwhelming emotions, she gracefully took a step back, allowing him to enter the space that had become their reunion. Overwhelmed with love, compassion, and an acute awareness of the fleetingness of time, Kyle moved forward, embracing Megan with tenderness. Tears streamed down his face as he held her, a mingling of joy and sorrow intertwining in his heart. "You came." Kyle held Megan tightly, his voice choked with emotion. "Of course I came," he whispered, his words filled with profound sense of commitment and devotion. In that moment, surrounded by the weight of their shared history and the fragility of the present, Kyle's presence became an affirmation of his unwavering love for Megan. He gently pulled back from the embrace, their eyes locked in an unspoken understanding. Megan's voice, weakened but filled with gratitude, trembled as she responded, "I knew you would come." Kyle stepped into the room, his eyes scanning the surroundings until they landed on a young boy who seemed taken aback by his presence. The boy rose from his seat, a mixture of surprise and curiosity evident in his expression. Kyle extended a warm smile, his heart swelling with affection for the child standing before him. "Hello," Kyle greeted, his voice filled with warmth. Kyle carefully placed the boxes he had carried in front of him, his smile growing wider with each passing moment. In his excitement and nervousness, he found himself struggling to find the right words to express his emotions. The simple phrase that escaped his lips came out somewhat awkwardly, but it was filled with genuine love and joy. "These are for you." He watched the boy's face light up with anticipation, a mix of curiosity and delight sparkling in his eyes. As the boy eagerly opened the boxes, his youthful enthusiasm radiated throughout the room, filling Kyle's heart with an indescribable warmth. It was a small gesture, but it represented so much more, a symbol of the love and connection they were building, a testament to the new beginning they were embarking upon. At that moment, a muffled sound caught their attention, drawing their focus towards Megan, who had collapsed onto the floor. Kyle's heart raced with panic as he rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms. Fear gripped him, but he knew he had to act swiftly. With trembling hands, he dialed the number of his friend at the private clinic, desperately seeking guidance and assistance. As Kyle related the distressing situation to his friend, a mixture of frustration and disbelief filled his voice. "It feels like they treated her the other way around," the doctor lamented, his words tinged with anger and sorrow. In an attempt to offer reassurance, he continued, "But don't worry, with proper treatment, she'll be as good as new in a month." Kyle walked into the hospital ward, a sense of determination etched on his face. As he approached Megan's bedside, his smile radiated warmth and reassurance. Two pairs of eyes, one wary but hopeful, and the other young and curious, met his gaze. "The doctor said he'll make you the old Megan in a month," Kyle remarked, his voice filled with optimism. Megan mustered a weak smile in response, but her melancholy quickly overshadowed it. She expressed doubt, believing that she could never fully regain who she once was. "You go ahead and get some rest. John and I will spend quality time together, and we'll visit you every day." Megan's doubts were met with Kyle's unwavering support. He emphasized that he was there for both her and John, their family united in the face of adversity. Expressing his disbelief at the turn their lives had taken, Kyle reassured Megan that blame lay with neither of them. Apologies and reflections could wait for another time. Kyle's hand extended towards John, offering comfort and stability. The young boy hesitated briefly before placing his trust in Kyle's hand, symbolizing the newfound connection and strength they would draw from one another. As they stepped out onto the street, a sense of newfound hope and possibility filled the air. Kyle opened the car door, allowing John to settle in. With a reassuring smile, he suggested their first stop. "So, first we'll go to a cafe and eat?" The boy nodded in agreement, his gaze fixed intently on Kyle. There was a mixture of curiosity and longing in his eyes as he posed a heartfelt question. "Will you love my mom?" Kyle's response was immediate, his voice filled with unwavering sincerity. "Of course I will. I've always loved her." The boy's gaze then turned towards himself, seeking reassurance and affirmation. Kyle's eyes met John's, brimming with love and paternal warmth. "And me?" John asked, his voice laced with vulnerability. A gentle smile graced Kyle's lips as he responded, his voice overflowing with love and conviction. "How could I not love if you're my son?" The words carried the weight of a lifelong commitment, a promise to nurture and cherish the bond that had finally been discovered. A few weeks later, Megan was out. The family decided to go to the very park where they first met. As they strolled through the park, enjoying the simple pleasures of ice cream and the warmth of family togetherness, their paths crossed with a woman diligently collecting empty beer cans. Her gaze lifted in astonishment as she recognized Kyle, her eyes widening with a mix of emotions. Then, her gaze shifted to the young boy beside him, whose resemblance to Kyle was unmistakable. Tears welled up in Kelly's eyes as she realized the opportunities she had missed and the choices that had led her down a destructive path. In that moment, she understood the depth of her regret, realizing that she could have been the one walking beside Kyle, sharing in the love and happiness he had found. Summoning the strength to stand, Kelly uttered Kyle's name in a whisper, her voice laced with a mixture of pain and longing. Kyle turned around, his eyes clouded with confusion as he tried to place the familiar voice. It took a moment for recognition to dawn upon him, and his initial anger dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of sorrow as he beheld the person Kelly had become. "It's me, Kelly," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Kyle's heart ached as he observed the toll that years of drinking and drug abuse had taken on her, eroding the beauty that once defined her. Emotions swirled within Kyle, a turbulent blend of anger, sadness, and compassion. While memories of their tumultuous past resurfaced, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the person standing before him, a shadow of the woman he had known. It turned out that she couldn't handle everything she received from the divorce, so she decided to sell it. Unfortunately, the money didn't last long because she started living a luxurious lifestyle. Eventually, she ended up in a difficult financial situation. With a sense of nostalgia, she asked, "Could you possibly spare some change for old time's sake?" Kyle stood his ground, refusing to give her even a single penny. It was Megan, once again, who had convinced him to let go of the past and move on. However, her next request caught him completely off guard. She took him aside and said something that shook him to the core. "I understand your feelings of hatred towards her, but I also believe that deep down, you possess the capacity for great kindness," she whispered to him. After some deliberation, Megan managed to persuade Kyle to consider hiring Kelly for a position within his company. Kyle was taken aback by this unexpected request. It wasn't an easy decision for him, but he eventually found the strength to overcome his reservations. Taking a deep breath, Kyle made up his mind and offered Kelly a job as a packer in the warehouse. It was a position that required attention to detail and efficiency. Kelly, despite her challenging circumstances, approached her new job with humility and a strong work ethic. She dedicated herself to her responsibilities and worked tirelessly. Her efforts did not go unnoticed, as she played a significant role in implementing various improvements within the warehouse operations. Impressed by her dedication and exceptional performance, the manager recognized Kelly's contributions and recommended her for the prestigious title of Warehouse Employee of the Year. It was a testament to her hard work and the positive impact she had made on the company. Kyle arrived back at his house on that specific day and warmly held his wife Megan in a heartfelt embrace. As he gazed into her eyes, a wordless smile appeared on his face, and he spoke two uncomplicated but profound words: "I am grateful." Kyle acknowledged and valued Megan's influence in persuading him to exhibit kindness and persevere, resulting in positive outcomes for